When it comes to being a human, I guess one of the most magnificent powers that we have as humans is that we can decide how we feel about something and how our intention of action can change the outcome of a moment. It's the first lecture in Stoic philosophy, Marcus Aurelius, in Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. He writes, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." This particular lesson alone is easily one of the most powerful things that you can know. It's the psychological concept of to act as if. It's the Jedi concept of do or do not, there is no try. It is indeed the deliberate forming of an identity around an ideal and a value that you wish to align with. Now, this can be used at work to be a better employee or even a better boss. It can be used at home to be a better husband, better wife, a better parent. And it can absolutely make you funnier. That last part I only found out about after speaking with my guest today, Broden Kelly. He's a podcaster, a musician, and 1/3 of the landmark Australian comedy outfit Aunty Donna. They're not for everyone. That's okay. There's a solid broad line in the middle of our community where a joke is very obvious, and as you get further to the edges, it can get darker, stranger, weirder, more uncomfortable, and sometimes, just sometimes, you can loop all the way back around through all that discomfort and pop back up in absolute hilarity. And it's that particular path for me which makes Aunty Donna one of the most astounding comedy exports that our country has ever made. Their groundbreaking Netflix show is fucking bonkers, Aunty Donna's Big Old House of Fun. If it's not for you, that's fine. Not everything is for everyone. However, the three core people who make up Aunty Donna are smart, delightful, loving humans who have a lot to offer outside of making sure there's always room for Bud. Broden came round to an apartment I was living in Melbourne when I was down there shooting some TV for a while. It was a bit echoey, so sorry about that. And we talked about the incredible journey that Aunty Donna have been on, the absolute pinnacle moment as well, where they changed the trajectory of their careers all by simply deciding the intent behind their performance. It's a fantastic moment. And then we talk a lot about footy, particularly AFL. Broden's got a fantastic podcast. It's called The Footy with Broden Kelly. Bounce that pill. I love it. I love that podcast because he talks about a sport in a way that has nothing to do with stats or scandals or gambling. He talks about this sport from an emotional place that I've never really heard described before. I came to football quite late, both AFL and NRL, which are the two big ones in Australia. But the way Broden talks about it, it really speaks to me in a way that the blossom-nosed ex-players on TV don't. He's such a good bloke, and I can't wait for you to meet him. This is Broden Kelly.
You want me to sync it?
And this is what happens when you work with self-generated content professionals like Broden Kelly. Thanks for coming, man.
Pleasure. Yeah, I just wanted to say, I assume we're starting because you said you always like to prepare whenever you talk to someone.
Yes.
So you've got information about me on your hybrid Mac, Apple, iPad situation over
I
here.
do.
I've been preparing to talk to you my whole life. My life is research on you. So
this is weird then.
yes, you raised me.
Okay, what were your parents doing at the time?
They were out. They were out. I every day from does this make sense when I say from the by demand days?
Oh wow, like 99. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And I was like 8 then.
Fucking hell.
So you genuinely raised me. And it would be pre Yumi, James, Jabba.
Wow.
There was, is it a Paula?
Yeah.
So I like Paula, I remember.
Wow.
So you would have been not
fresh out of radio. I was fresh out of radio.
knee high from a beehive.
Yeah, I'd been in radio for 5 years and doing the overnight shift.
Yeah.
Midnight to dawn.
I was like, I remember mentally doing a mental shift from I'm above Nickelodeon now. I don't need to be watching Our Real Monsters. I mean, I'm practically an adult. I'm going to go to Channel V.
Here's a completely uncensored Ice Cube clip.
Yeah.
Talking about I can do what? Put my back where?
Yes. I remember and just such great music.
Yeah.
And it was the first thing I remember watching on Channel V was Was it the Wallflowers doing "How Does It Feel" by New Order, the New Order cover,
Something like that.
Some weird cover. And I was like, wow, what's the? Anyway, I have very vivid memories.
I remember the first music video I ever saw, and it was "I Want a New Drug" by Huey Lewis and the News, which very famously they went and afterwards they sued Ray Parker Jr. for ripping off their riff for
What's
Ghostbusters.
the riff for it? How does the riff go?
That was "I Want a New Drug." And Ray Parker Jr. ripped it off for Ghostbusters.
Really?
Yeah, and they sued him and won. And then the next video that played after that was "Power and the Passion."
That's a good back-to-back.
No, Read About It. Read about
even
it.
better.
Like when he had the press, he had all the newspapers on him. It was fucking
It's funny,
great.
the lyrics
So
to Ghostbusters being, "I ain't afraid of no ghost," but they should have been, "I ain't afraid of no IP,
Lawyer.
Lawyer.
Yeah, but they're still figuring all that stuff out sample-wise.
Aren't they?
The lawsuit didn't come for years later.
How do you feel about how Ed Sheeran approached his lawsuits recently? About he was up there, he got in front of the jury with a guitar and did a show for them. Like, that's the most charming thing you could possibly do.
Well, we've all seen, that's why courtrooms make great dramas. It's because it's the barrister is putting on a performance.
That's right.
Yeah, what's the difference between a barrister and a barista? It's like 7 years of uni. It's a performance. It's essentially persuading 12 people good and true.
And who's better to do that than Ed Sheeran with an acoustic guitar?
There's only so many chords, you know. And I'm sure you see the same thing in your work, whether it be with the podcast, which I love, the footy, because I love pretending I'm Steve Britton every now and again.
Yeah.
Tonight on 9,
Next on 9,
Broden Kelly with the footy.
That's what on
And a reveal.
Married at first sight. He pushes through the first half of the sentence very quickly, and then we'll chew the scenery on the second half. Like, next on
yeah. So I do love that. But whether it be that or whether it be the Aunty Donna stuff, when you come to making a joke about something,
sure,
the funny thing about the thing, particularly if it's a relatable thing, is going to be the funny thing about the thing and has been the funny thing about the thing, whether it be the way you relate to your parents or the way you relate to your kids.
Yes.
That's been the joke for 400 years.
100%.
So it's going to happen occasionally. You will come up with the same thing completely independent.
100%.
And then people will go, "Oh, you fucking stole that from," and then here comes a YouTube clip from 1996. Like, dude.
It's the chord progressions in songs, you know, that everyone's covered. There's 4 chords in
Most pop
95% of most pop music. Comedy has been the same for 150, like since the beginning, really. And it took us a while to figure out, like, it took me a while at least creatively to go, how do I always ensure that what I'm doing is going to be the funniest it possibly can be? And the truth of it is, if you write from truth, then that's inherently what's funny. The truth is the funniest thing in the world. Like, if you're making a joke, using a real friend's name from high school is always going to be funnier for some magical reason than a name you make up. So if I say Matt Gelsomini, it's funnier than some name I make up because that's a real guy I went to uni with. Without
a shadow of a doubt. And this is what I would tell the news team that I'm doing this news show with. So it's NTN, NNN. And and Craig Rucastle's at the first show, and I was like, "I'm sorry, I stole your joke." He goes, "It's fine, it's okay. I'll sue you, but it's fine."
As long as you don't use reusable cups, he'll be okay.
Which you're doing right now, Rucastle. Real stories, fake news. So I studied when I was in America. I studied at UCB, and that's how I started.
Really?
Radio. Yeah, that's how I started in radio. I started coming through improv, and so there was always a thing that in Australia, for some reason, improv isn't.
No,
you know, and it's like, and it's kind of nerdy, and it laughs. It isn't often in the improv that I've seen in Australia is not brave enough to own that we're on stage being this thing. It always is self-aware, and it's never as funny when it is. And so when I was like, how can I get this? And so I created this show where I read a real story. They're the news team. I tell them, do not read the news for a day. And then and now Broden with this, and then you are there.
You're joking?
No, it's fucking great. And we did it at the Melbourne Comedy Festival, Sydney, Newcastle. This is the one we pitched to Paramount the other day.
Right.
And we're doing it now. We're piloting it. But I was always tell the cast, I said, if someone's in a chainsaw race, you're holding a chainsaw. You're holding a Husqvarna T525.
Yeah, exactly.
Details
always the funniest.
Always funnier. And particularly when it comes to, because they're wonderful. I love them so much. They're so fucking smart. And they're nerdy theatre people. Like, why do they care about football? I'm like, guys, it's going to be funnier if you know
100%.
what a behind is versus a goal. It's going to be funnier if you know why the scrums are shit in NRL now.
Even if someone doesn't understand that minutia, they're still going to get the vibe of it. The energy around it is. In our Netflix show we made in America, the show is entirely US produced. It's nothing to do with Australia. American money, American producers, just 3 dorky Australians and a couple of behind the camera. And we were in this position where when we made shows in the past in Australia, if you went a bit niche, sometimes you get a bit of pushback and go, no one's, I know what you're trying to say with that niche joke, but it's too niche. But what we could do in America is it was so far removed from what we do. Yeah. We could make the most niche jokes and just go to Netflix and say, oh, actually, this will be huge in Australia. So there's a car dealer in Ringwood, a suburb of Victoria, and called Car City. And we just thought it'd be funny to mention that in the show. And then they push back and go, what is that? And go, oh, it's going to be huge in Australia. The truth is no one knows what the fuck that is. And there's jokes in our show about people we went to university with at the same, like just the tiniest jokes. Yeah. And it's the biggest audience we've ever had, but we tried to make it as in-jokey as possible because there's something about it.
I've always done that with the TV work and even on the Channel V stuff. Yes. Even way back then, in the course of a talk break that you would say between 2 songs, would, I don't know what we were talking about before, Ice Cube, all right? So, you talk about, Ice Cube is, yes, he can do it if he puts his back into it, much like the great O'Shea Jackson used to say, you can do it, which is his actual name. And, a week later, you'd get someone sending an email going, did you fucking do it? Yes, I did. Yeah. And for me, I know it probably doesn't scale, but for me, if I'm going to that granularity, only in that every now and again, that's it.
If you're working on that frequency, what you're actually building is intimacy with people. Yeah. And it's all about that. Is if you do that 100, if that's just how you're working, there's people who are going to go, I'm the only person in the world who got that joke and I feel connected to Osher. It's
the best.
So for comedy recently, that's why TikTok has been so massive for comedy. And I don't really use it as much. We've kind of came up in a generation before it. But often what we found is we were making sketches and comedy for YouTube. And our audience were really connected to it. And anytime we got a budget early on, we would scale up and get really good cameras and really good lighting and everything would be beautifully shot. And you'd make it and go, okay, it's still funny, but something's off. Yeah. And then you realize when you look at something like TikTok, it's the closest a comedian or a performer can feel to their audience because when you're watching it as an audience, you're just going, that is just a guy in his room talking about this joke.
To me alone.
Yes. And it's so intimate. And comedy, also with music as well, is at its best when it feels like it's just your mate. So you've always got, it's intimacy. Yeah. Comedy's about connection and intimacy is, connection.
Yeah. I've started this kind of new venture I was speaking about, and as people I'm working with now that were kind of around, and now I've kind of brought them in and we're working together. It's really great. Yes. And speaking with one of them the other day, because I, kind of writing, I don't write all my own Instagram captions. Letting her know is like, it's never all you out there. It's never, hey, everybody. It's one person at a time.
Hello.
And it's only ever one person at a time. It's like, if you could, it's that is it, yeah. And it was one of the greatest things my old radio boss told me. It's like, it's only ever one person at a time, mate.
Yeah.
That's it. And if you can do that, it's unless you're literally standing on stage in front of thousands of people, that's the only time you can say, are you all okay?
Which is arguably a more intimate experience.
It is.
And why it garners a different, I always find it interesting the way people perform on radio or TV, as opposed to those same people in front of an audience. Something just structurally changed. Even though you might be talking to 1 million people on TV, as soon as you're in front of 1,000, that feels so much more connected and daunting and interesting.
I missed it so much when it was gone. I came from live, right? So I was on stage with my band, and then I was, Idol was live and amazing, and there was 600 people in the room. It was fucking pumping.
For a TV show, 600 people, it's ridiculous.
At the old Global Studios, they're now apartment block, office block.
Really?
Yeah, they were huge, massive TV studios. And then we went to Fox, we went to Stage 5, which is even bigger, which is where we shoot Mask. And it was at Disney now. And I missed it. And we tried to make Masked Singer without an audience. Fuck, it's hard, man.
Yeah.
It's near impossible.
Yeah,
It's
no,
so
totally.
hard.
I can't imagine.
I missed it so much. I missed seeing gigs, and I was really worried. My eldest, she's now 19, my stepdaughter, she's unbelievable. And COVID hit in the middle of her high school year, grade 12, right? And so that whole like going to gigs, having other people sweat on you, you know, jumping around, dancing, she didn't have any of it. It's really important.
That generation, do you think there's a genuine point of difference for kids who went through high school, had these real formative moments during COVID?
Without a doubt.
Yeah?
Without a doubt.
What's the differences?
Well, how do you learn? You know, it's only by rubbing up against people that you don't know that you understand how the world works. Mm-hmm. And eventually, you know, whether it be, yes, I'm walking across a nightclub and I've clearly got 2 drinks.
Yes.
And understanding which person is going to get out of your way and understanding which person, I might just walk around that guy. It's even though anyone at a courtroom, Ed Sheeran courtroom would go, you know, I'll just move to one side.
Yeah.
I can tell by that bloke, he's not going to move.
So,
and one of our drinks is going to get spilled and this isn't going to end well. So you can't learn that.
A lot of 19-year-olds smashing into each other at nightclubs with beers now. But I've noticed this year particularly, I think this year's the first, like, not entirely, but the most COVID clear we've been in 3 or 4 years. Amazing. Everyone is in Europe. Yeah. I can't imagine. Must just be going off over there at the moment. Yeah, pumping. It's the first year you really feel like people are going, okay, this is the year. I missed out on 3 years of my life. I'm going to really go for it. Yeah,
because they did the Instagram travel where they just kind of looked like, I'm going to go here, I'm going to go there, I'm going to go to this, da, da, da.
3 years worth of aggressively, I'm going to have the best fucking time of my life.
Because of the way they communicate, whether it be Snapchat, they stay within their cohort and they never really bump up against people who aren't outside of that. And, you know, that happens in high school and whatever anyway. But if you're not, like with me, I was going out seeing bands. I was a roadie. You know, I'm seeing all people from all walks of life, from 100%. All parts of the city. It's a different way of looking at the world if you've never seen anyone outside of your world.
Yes.
And it affects every aspect of your life depending on whatever you're going to do, whether you be in broadcasting like me or comedy like yourself or music or finance or whatever. Yes. I mean, the trope of the, you know, entitled white guy who's in Parliament going, well, why can't you just live on that much money?
Let them eat cake.
Yeah, exactly. It's because they've never known what it's like to not be able to afford toothpaste.
It's a very, very, very good point. And also separating the opinion from the person is something that you often do online when you don't really know someone. My first job when I was 18, right? I had the wrong job. I was in year 12 and I would leave school early and drive into the MCG in Melbourne. And I used to work with 70-year-olds and 80-year-olds, ex-cops. I was a Melbourne Cricket Club man in a suit who would like check who if anyone was too pissed. And
I was in the members stand.
Collared shirts and like very formal, very
RSA.
Yeah. But I was more just like stand around and keep the club standard up was my job. I was 18.
Only white people in Broden? That sort of thing?
At that time, yes. Predominant. And not a lot of women.
Yeah.
They used to have things called women's cards because women couldn't be members.
Fuck off.
So now they've allowed that, but there's still a few women's cards floating around. But I used to just work with all ex-coppers who were like on the beat in Melbourne in the 50s and 60s. And without going into too much detail, they have very different opinions to anyone now. But I remember just standing with these blokes for 10, 12 hours a day and having very differing opinions on most things to them, but also being able to separate that experience. But even though I violently disagreed with so many things that old men had to say in the 2000s, you got to connect someone, a human, with their opinions, and that doesn't really happen online. It's so much easier to go viciously on someone if it's just the opinion.
Yeah. Absolutely. We talked about using real people from your real life as a basis for, you know, your work right now. To be exposed to that for 12 hours a day, not only those blokes, but also the people who are in there, man, I'm sure we've seen a few of those blokes on screen.
Oh, yeah. 100%, mate. Oh, yeah. There's some people who I've seen on TV now who used to go in there who are just real pricks. And some nice people as well.
Yeah.
But, it was good times.
You watch some shows and different people, different faces, different ages say the joke, but it's the same joke.
Yes.
From the same place.
Mm-hmm.
It's important to have comedy come from everywhere, not just, and is often the case, kind of left of centre.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really important. So someone like Heggie, who is brilliant, who's quite, if anything, a moderate.
Yes. Well, he's the funniest, right? Heggie's the funniest because this is potentially one of Australia's greatest comedians at the moment. He's literally a wordsmith. He's a brilliant writer, but he'll also work on job sites and he presents as the bloke.
Because he fucking is. But won't tell you that he's got 2 master's degrees and speaks French.
Yeah, that's right. And his 2 children go to French school and he speaks French to them, and his French, like, he's the most thoughtful, Renaissance man. But he's one of the greats. But it's if you get 50 minutes with someone, you can learn some really interesting stuff.
He had this line, and I watched him do it. He's actually doing it for the last time ever. He's doing it this weekend. He had this line in his show. It's very hard to be moderate. It's like opinion's the only thing in a race to be binary lately. And I heard is a Melbourne crowd go, whoa. I'm like, yeah, that's right. Fuck yeah, he did.
He's one of those guys. He'll jump around and say some out there stuff, but does it with such eloquence. It's very, very rare.
Well, yeah.
And when you get people who consider themselves edgelords, or who consider themselves like, I'm saying what everyone else is afraid to, like leather jacket, I'm the king of, what you're missing is the eloquence of someone like Heggie. Yeah. If you're really, really good, you can say just about anything, but you need to be actually the Michael Jordan of doing it.
Yes, your job is, as Sloss puts it, your job is to walk someone towards that punchline in a way that they will laugh. If they get offended, it's because you haven't done your job.
And the real challenge of a great comedian is that person said that and they went there, and a lot of people watch and go, well, that's what I want to do. I want to go and do that. But it's like, the real challenge for someone is to ask them, can you work clean, or can you do that joke without that awful thing you said there? If you can do that, then you can do that.
It's like skiing it's like skiing without your poles.
Yeah.
When you're learning to ski, if they say, try to do it without your poles. If you can do it without your poles, then all the foot stuff is fine.
Exactly.
But if you're relying on the poles to get there, you can't turn.
If you can only exist by doing that, then it's a sign that you're actually not up to it.
Right.
But someone like Sloss or Heggie can go out and talk about the exact opposite and not go there and be
But they have crafted that like a fucking Olympic gymnastic routine and have fallen 1,000 times before they do it as if it was it's not just a thing that they improvise.
Exactly right. The other miracle of Comedy Festival, right, is I think in 2023 that it's the biggest ticketed festival in Australia.
Yeah.
And that there's tens of thousands of people who are it's a very rare thing for humanity to go out and just try shit.
Yeah.
And when does that happen? When, like, it happens, I can only think of doing it. My growing up was Big Day Out and just going to a stage and seeing, who's this?
Discovery. It's beautiful.
I went to Soundwave when I was in 2010 or 2011 and saw Primus. And I never heard of, I only knew the South Park guy.
You've never seen Primus.
Yeah. And then to see just this guy, and then I'm like, well, that's the best thing I've ever seen.
Ever.
Yeah.
He's, one of my, I wanted to be Les Claypool so bad. I have fretless basses.
It was genuinely walking past the stage to go and see someone and stopping and turning and seeing him. And I think he had a pig mask on and was like on
Mr. Crinkle.
Yeah.
Bum, 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 bum,
yes.
bum, bum, bum,
I was like, what? And I was like, I'll stay for a bit, and stayed for the whole thing. Those moments. And it's the same with Comedy Festival when it might cost you 10, 20, $30 to just give someone a shot.
Yeah.
It's the most rewarding thing in the world.
We would have, like, say, if there was 100 people in the room, in the preamble, I would say, so who's here because they listen to my podcast? Like, one person puts their hand up. It's like, I'm glad you're here. Who watches any of the TV I make? 2 people put their hand up here. Like, who's the other 97 of you? How did you get here?
Having a crack.
That's amazing. That's fucking incredible.
Yeah,
to actually, on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Well,
the Tuesday's it's tight ass Tuesday, isn't it?
Well, still, on Wednesday. To come and give something a shot. And if you've never been to a Melbourne Comedy Festival, I would just recommend it because
100%.
You're going to get exposed to, you're not going to see everything's not going to be great, but you're going to get exposed to ideas and ways of looking at the world that you otherwise might have never considered, because that is, for me, that is the great, great, great key and the great superpower of comedy, because it short circuits your biases.
Good point.
Like a joke and there's less of them in Australia because of the reasons we just mentioned, but there's right-wing stand-ups in the States. They're fucking funny.
Some are, yeah.
I'm abhorred that I laugh, but it's funny.
Yeah.
You know? Mm-hmm. And it's because it's a well-told joke from a different ideological point of view to the one that I generally stand on.
Yeah. Well, it's about intimacy, isn't it? If you're actually talking from intimacy, everything else on top is kind of froth and bubble, hey?
Yeah. When you're doing your, like the kind of stuff you do kind of lends into absurdity quite a bit.
That's our whole goal. It's our internal mantra is to never say anything, really. And with Aunty Donna, our goal, we have a 2-word sort of mantra, which is the goal for our entire 11-year career, which is whatever's funniest. And we're never driven by the opposite. And there are comedians out there who are trying to say things and are saying profound things and having a really genuine good impact on the world. But our goal was literally to just say it's okay to just be funny. And it's actually really, really important.
Yeah.
We were, I think, 3 years into doing live shows at Comedy Festival. First year we did it, we went really, really well. We're in a 20, 30-seater and we're all 22 and we're like, hopefully someone likes this, and people came and we're like, fuck, we're gods. Second year went not as good and we're like, oh, okay, we got to work harder. So third year we worked our asses off and took it really, really seriously. And then developed this show over 6 months, writing meticulously, trying to master this. And we wrote the best show we'd ever done. Put it on stage and middling response. I'm like, oh no. Got a bad review. Oh, Jesus. In a 22-show run, we're 3 or 4 shows in. It's going really badly. An Edinburgh booker comes and goes, yeah, you got some work to do. It was going badly. And I'm like, this is the best show we've ever written. And we're like, maybe it's over.
Oh.
And maybe we just suck. Maybe the first year was cool momentum and we're done.
Yeah.
And Zach said, one of the members of the group, we sat down before a show and he said, I think we're going out there and showing them the 6 months of work that we've done. And I think we're showing them how hard we worked. And there's a bunch of people in Melbourne who worked really hard all day and worked at an insurance job, or they were teachers and they were like, great, it's Friday. I'm going to go see a comedy show, and would see these 3 men going, like this show, laugh. And we're like, let's just go out for an hour and treat people to a laugh and just have a break. And that's all we're saying is have fun for an hour. And as soon as we did that, I think a week later, we got a 4.5-star review.
With this based on the same material?
Yes, same show, exact same show. Went from being, look how great we are, to let's have fun.
And it was in the way that you approached the material?
Yeah, and it's fundamentally just core in that when you're developing anything, you have to work your ass off and get the corners right and get the detail right. But then the moment you do it, it needs, particularly for comedy, but also with music and anything else, you need to be just like, but it's for now. My partner saw Lizzo the other night.
Oh, amazing.
And I said, how was it? She said it was great. There was a bit where the lighting went wrong and she did the song again. And I was like, isn't that's
perfect?
Always everyone's favorite moment.
Yeah.
When you go and see someone, all you want to see is the real moment.
Yeah.
You don't want to see Lizzo's show that she's done 400 times. You want to see the real moment. Yeah. And that's what you'll remember. Yeah. And that's what, and so our whole show shifted to be about, we work really hard and try and write our best show and practice at heaps, but all we're trying to do is have a magic hour with the people in the room, and you want them to walk away and go, that was sick. I had this very special moment.
Yeah.
But for that was a huge lesson to learn.
It's extraordinary, having that thing in your heart, like what it is that I'm trying to achieve with this, whatever it may be, having the intent of your output be crafted, and this filter through which everything, every action, every interaction, every facial expression through which will flow. One of the things I do really love about your stuff is I'm a big fan of Steve Martin. And not the films.
So his specials,
his stand up,
banjo shows,
just the absurdity of his stand up. And particularly, there's this thing that Steve Martin writes about in his book, which I just adore.
Born Standing Up is
it's fucking the best. If you've not read it, it's like one of the greatest books ever written about comedy. And people initially would come and see him and go, there's no punchline. Where's the joke? And he says, that's it. And particularly in repetition, the really wild thing that happens in humans when we repeat a word and we take all meaning that we have assigned to that word out of that word, and then just becomes a bunch of sounds. And watching, and you do it really, you're able to replicate it quite well on your television, which is hard to do. In the space, in a room, you can take a whole audience. It's essentially verbal, you're tickling.
Yes.
You're tickling.
That's exactly right.
Because it's like, this was funny, and now I want it to stop because it's now hurting.
Yeah.
And now it's funny again. And now it's kind of hurting. Is it going to be, it's funny again. Oh, fuck, now it's hurting again. Like, it's just keep pushing that part of your brain to uncertainty, essentially.
Yes. It's to insanity, to absurdity. Funny how big a war can affect the world in that it's all from World War II, in that the absurdist movement of theatre came right out of World War II and just seeing pure horror. And so Europe and everywhere started to change the way they approach theatre. So you got people like Brecht and Antonin Artaud and Theatre of Cruelty and other drama, Year 12 drama solo stuff. But like literally at that point, everyone just going, what's the point of any of this shit? What's the point of any of it? And so, then this whole movement of people just coming back to that core. Have you seen many clown performances?
Yeah.
It's coming back to that you can put lots on top and have some really important things to say, but also an eye looking at someone in the right way can be so profoundly funnier than anything you could say.
It's wonderful. And you are in a troupe of people who you started creating your own thing. You started filming your own thing. You'll probably had to figure out how to edit it at some point. This is a part of what it is to create now is in the absence of a gatekeeper, he's like, I'm going to make this myself. I have the technological ability, and the price point of that stuff is dropped to a point where, like, I couldn't afford a TV studio.
Yeah.
You know, I couldn't afford a fucking radio studio. But now I have that camera and I have a Rode Procaster which can put a phone to line. I'm there.
And it's scary that the younger the generation, the better they are at all the things.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
Because the ultimate level of then is like, well, then what are you going to do with it?
All comes back to it's a great time because we should theoretically be having just the best voices being able to be showcased, and all you really need to do is to fill that little gap. And you can financially, for these guys coming through, should be able to get out there and do it.
Yeah.
And make a living from it. For a long time, it became when we first started doing comedy, we were like, the only way to make this a career is to get a TV show.
Yeah.
And if not, then we're done.
Because otherwise you can't put the amount of time in that it takes to make it. And it's like being a professional athlete.
Yeah. That's the only way you do it. So we were like, so let's just start putting this stuff up. Let's make some sizzle reels to show to producers. Incidentally, we'll put it up on YouTube in the meantime. And then we're like, well, no one's given us TV shows and no one's even looking like they're thinking about considering giving us a TV show.
Yeah.
But the videos we're putting up online are doing really well, and the people who watch them are coming to our show. But let's keep trying to make the TV show. But it's that's what it is now. You can, but it's funny, I speak to a lot of young TikTokers and stuff as well, and they're all just desperate to take the next step as well. There's still something about making something premium and special that is people want to do. Yeah. Even though movies are becoming harder and harder to sell, it's what everyone wants to do, I guess.
Movie?
Yeah, well, I love movies more than TV still, even though that's where the heat. Like this weekend, we're talking as the two big movies are dropping, and it's all that anyone's talking about. When something special comes out.
But when was the last time that, and we're talking about Oppenheimer and Barbie, all right? When was the last time that a non-superhero film showed up?
Oh, man.
That I could not wait to see.
This is why I'm so excited for this weekend.
You know?
I know one is unfortunately, but still excitingly, existing IP in that it's Barbie, but then it's still a great filmmaker doing something potentially new. But it's so sad that I can't think of the last time I saw a movie that wasn't.
You want to get really sad? Look 10 years ago and look at any of the films that got nominated. There was and try and see any of those getting greenlit. Look at what won the Oscar in 1990. or 2000.
Yeah.
Like, what's going to get greenlit?
No,
like, fucking Kramer versus Kramer is not going to get
Fried
greenlit.
green tomatoes.
That's a weird little fucking play that you're going to do.
Kramer versus Ant-Man, maybe. So it's like
I showed someone Kramer versus Godzilla yesterday. And it's like,
oh yeah, great.
And she was like, "What is this?" Just keep watching. Just keep watching.
Is that a real thing?
Yeah.
That's so good.
It's very funny. It's just a trailer, but it's very funny.
It's a shame, but it's also like I went and saw Harry Potter in Melbourne, the live show, the First Child, the 9-hour magic show. And I was like, this isn't for me. I wasn't a Potter kid. I was a Channel V kid.
Yeah.
And but I was like, there's 30 actors working in a play.
Yeah, not bad.
So I'm like, there's the two streams. You're like, yes, Joker is a superhero movie, but it's also, I guess, someone trying to do Taxi Driver in 20.
Yeah, they really were, weren't they?
2018 or whatever. But what I'm to my end, I want to see more Oppenheimers and Barbies, as do we all.
Yeah.
I want something that compels me to the cinema.
Yeah.
That is an Avatar 9 or.
Yeah, I don't need another Marvel film.
No,
I really don't.
Apparently, they're going to stop. That's what Bob Iger says, alongside some other awful stuff. But yeah.
Well, you mentioned about making it a full-time career, and that TV be the only way to do it. You kind of just have to do it because you love it.
Yeah.
If you're trying to do it, and that's the only thing that's going to push you to make it better, to get you to the point where Zach says, we just have to go out there and do it this way.
Yeah.
Because it has to be. If you're doing it for it does get to a point where you have commitments like, I've got a mortgage now.
Yes.
You know, I've got school fees.
Yep.
Like, I've got to keep the money coming in the door, so I've got to figure out ways to do that. And there are ways in the way I'm working to make that happen. But if you're just doing it for the cash, it's never going to be true. And if it's not true, you just, you're performing a role that is not maybe as authentic as you want it to be. And maybe not have, it might flash very quickly, but it might not have the longevity.
You're exactly right.
And it's okay to go and do another gig.
If you're at its core doing something like that, it cuts.
I had Hal Ladakaifu on here the other day. He was in Coolism. Like, he's an amazing hip hop. He was like a Tongan hip hop rapper. He's fucking unbelievable. Lives from Queanbeyan. And he was going, mate, I had to take a day off of work at retail to go and go to the Arias.
Yeah. No, we had that with Netflix. I remember the first time we performed in LA, we broke through in America, and we performed at a place called Largo, which is like Charlie Chaplin used to perform this situation. And we're performing in front of sold out 300 people at the time. We didn't know if anyone would show up. In the crowd is Eric Idle from Monty Python. Dylan Moran's watching, some other very cool people, and got on the plane home and went back to the call center the next day. And it was just like, all right, let's do some Telstra feedback. And it sucks. But it's also like, when you get to a point where you're not doing it anymore, you lose that groundedness as well, which is really important.
This is and you mentioned Heggie before. Like, case in point, I brought him up. Like, I grew up with him. I've known him since I was 8. All right, I sat next to him in grade 3. He's the first.
Really?
Yeah, he's the first person that I saw ever tell a joke deliberately when we were 8. We used to live together. He's a great bloke.
What a cool story to have.
Yeah, he's an amazing guy. And great Scrabble player. And that's the great thing about Heggie. He will have these moments where he will literally open for Stephen Merchant at the Opera House, and then the next day with a Makita, reciprocating saw, be on a demo job at 5 a.m.
Yeah, it's a hard gig.
And that is actually quite important, because it actually gives you a push.
Yeah.
It gives you a real push.
Yes.
Because I was a roadie for 3 years. I don't want to lift heavy shit ever again.
Yeah,
all right?
Absolutely.
Ever.
It's really important, and it's important to never lose sight of as well.
Yeah. After this, I'm doing another thing on spec.
Oh,
and that's the only way the work happens, is you make stuff and you show it to someone and go, what do you think? People don't come and knock on, hey man, we've got that thing that you wanted. No. Here it is.
No.
You got to build it.
Yeah.
You've got to build it.
It's just time and equity, sweat equity.
Your footy podcast is so fucking good.
I just wanted to make a show where Donna's taking its first 4-month break in 10 years, and that we never had a day off really. And so we got to the point where we were allowed to give ourselves a bit of time off. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And so I set myself the goal of going, I want to shift the way that young men engage with sport.
And that's exactly what happens to me when I listen to it.
Oh, that's nice. That's good. Yeah, I was just literally, I just wanted to be like, whenever I was listening to sports stuff, I love it. It's my break from doing comedy all day. And I was like, there's two people talking about sport to me, and it's the old dude, it's my dad's friends, or it's the lads. It's the cool blokey skips from school. And I was like, I think there's a lot of dorks who like football and a lot of like comedy nerds who like sport. And I was like, I think if I just, and what often sport is, it's just the first sentence of a deeper conversation that you want to have, whether it's about your family, your life. When, like with anything else you're passionate about in life, it's a representation of your DNA, and it's a starting point. So that's all I wanted to explore. And what I was really excited to find out is there was a bunch of people who were really felt the same way as me and who were engaged with it and love it.
Yeah. Because my parents, both Euros, you know, anything that wasn't soccer, they were doctors. They didn't really ever play sport themselves. So as kids, we never really, I played a little bit of soccer, but I kind of missed it a lot. And I was an odd kid and I didn't like being jostled around. So I wasn't interested in rugby league at all.
Yeah.
And, you know, league in Queensland at the time was shit because all the good players were bought by New South Wales because poker machines, that's how State of Origin started. Poker machines were legal in New South Wales, but not in Queensland. So all the clubs down in New South Wales could afford to buy all of our great players. Yeah. Gambling. Fucking gambling.
And Queensland's been good ever since.
Well, basically they went, well, what happened if, you know, we played against each other? So that's how the first one happened.
Yeah, right.
And it kind of went from there. But still, there was no really great players until Broncos showed up in the late 80s. And we had Brisbane Bears, but they were on the Gold Coast, which at the time was an hour and 10 minutes away, or an hour and a half away.
Forever away.
And there was so many goalposts and the ball doesn't bounce right and people on the wrong end of the field. I don't know what the fuck this is. So I missed it. You know, I missed it a lot. I engaged through comedy. I engaged with rugby league through Roy and HG.
Yeah, exactly.
It's how I engaged with rugby league. They made it okay for me to like this game that was otherwise the only time you'd ever read about those guys is when they, you know, hit people, not on the field, you know?
Yeah.
And so it is through comedy that I was able to engage with that. And then so similarly with the AFL, when I listen to you or Josh Garlop, who I know you're a big fan of, he's fucking great.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah, like this is now, okay, I can talk about this.
He funnily comes from the word, I'm sure he's mentioned it to you as well. He was a journalist and he was sitting in the writer's pool or whatever it is.
It's a terrible room. I've been in there. It's
an
awful place to be.
And someone said, oh, Kawaj is out for the third test. And someone said, who gives a shit? And he was like, exactly. And had this real epiphany moment.
Wow.
But, you know, you can care about sport, but it's more about the connection it has to people. And we love it so much in this country. And it's just like,
particularly in this city, because the way that league is, there's very few suburban grounds. Whereas here, you can literally walk.
It's everywhere,
and see the A-grade elite level.
From here, over there, we're just looking at the window is where the Sydney Swans started, funnily enough. Did you know that? That was the South Melbourne Swans.
The Bloods, were they called?
The Bloods, they were. And they were called the Swans, I think, because of that lake just there.
What?
I'm pretty sure.
I've been looking at that for 2 weeks.
And you didn't know the Swannies are from there?
No idea.
Yeah, so now it is the South Melbourne Football Club, the soccer club.
Right.
Which I think Ange connected with. And
right.
But no, so that's the whole Sydney in Melbourne over there.
Wow.
But yes.
But there's the cultural thing here that I saw. I was riding a bicycle. I was riding to something the other night, and I rode past the train station at Richmond, and I saw this family get off the train, and they were walking to the MCG, and it was mum and dad and two kids, young girl, young boy, probably looked 11 and 9, and they had both made hand-drawn signs to hold up for the players that they love.
Yeah, you love that.
I can't imagine having wanted to do that when I was a kid, but that exists is a fucking amazing, and I'm sad that I missed it.
And what those kids are showing when they have that sign, I think, what it says to me is, look, it's an expression of the relationship that those kids have with their parents and that night and that ritual. And when I was in 2014, coming back to comedy, I was in Edinburgh, or 2015, 14 or 15 or 16, doing our show. And when you're overseas, I don't know if you feel this, but you get a very clear look at Australia.
Oh, yeah.
You see it clearer.
I lived away for 10 years. You do. You very much so.
And I was in America as well when the bushfires were happening in 2019.
Oh,
you get a very clear image of Australia when you're overseas. And the Adam Goods stuff was happening, which was this cultural pylon of just assholes of one of Australia's great players with really clear racial undertones to it. And I think a lot of people just followed. A lot of people didn't know how to respond. And I thought there's not a lot of we have a lot of blokes in sport who sort of lead and a lot of people follow ineptly. And I was like, the kids who are, I want to talk about the kids who make those signs, and I want that generation to have a positive, I want to give a positive direction that doesn't end up just being, we boo him because we don't like him, as opposed to,
no, we know why you don't boo him. Don't tell me you don't boo him. And
if you really don't boo him for that, you're next to the people who do boo him for that.
Yeah. And if you're not saying anything about it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And this is, that personal connection to a club, what does it mean when, or what club did you grow up?
I go for Melbourne. My grandfather.
Which is which animal?
The demon, the Satan.
Right. The Satan.
The one's connected to the underworld.
Well, this is great.
Yeah, they were originally the fuchsias, which was a flower.
Yeah, demon's better.
Yeah, slightly.
But I'm guessing there was a familial thing. Yeah. This is what you're going to go for?
When I say I go for Melbourne, what I'm really saying is my grandfather went for 50 years and worked at the MCG, and I worked with him, and my cousins. And what I'm saying is my family.
Right.
Isn't that funny?
I've never heard it explained like that. That it is, just before when you said those kids, that night is a representation of their love for their parents and the connection they have around the ritual of going to a game. It's not necessarily the outcome of the game.
Yes.
I've never heard it explained like that because I've missed that from my own parents. And in that space with Demons, for example, we've seen, whatever club it is, when there's a really fucking horrible transgression, someone does something very, very bad.
Yes.
Whether it be violent or sexually violent or worse. What does it mean to you?
Well, if it's just what's the word? Indefensible, then it's indefensible. But when you're talking about like punching someone on the field, you go, your instinct is to go to the defense of that person, even if they've played at 10 other clubs and they come to your team. Yeah, it's territorial. It's obviously sometimes not good, and sometimes it's clan mentality.
It's the off-field stuff, I think, is because there's people who are. And this is kind of why I try to seek out alternate NRL viewpoints, because the people that are on camera talking about it, I'm like, we're just supposed to forget about some of that shit.
Exactly.
Because I can't, man.
No,
Like, I know that, everyone deserves a chance to be, contrite, and everyone deserves a chance to learn and show, but it's hard for me.
I think you approach it the same way as like Hollywood or TV. You go, I enjoy this medium, I enjoy this entertainment, but that person is a prick, and remove them. And in the same way you look at, I don't know, music. I don't listen to that artist anymore. I don't.
Terrible people make great art.
Yes, they do.
It's really hard. Like there's some.
You notice as well that with music though, is like a song can be really good, but if you watch a 2-part 8-hour documentary about that person's transgressions, you can't listen to that song anymore. Like the discussion of separating the artist from their work or for what they've done. If it's bad enough that it's hard to look at that painting or to listen to that song, really.
Unless you take 700 wickets.
Exactly.
And then how about you? Exactly. Or unless, Pablo Picasso put a cigarette out in his girlfriend's face, then painted it.
Did he really?
Yeah. But he's still Pablo Picasso. It's very, I don't know the answer to it, but it's very difficult.
Well, even if you, I think Stephen Fry always talks about Wagner's music.
Yeah.
And he was just one of the most horrible people alive.
Truly.
And if you're genuinely being honest with yourself, even if you still like the song, you can't remove it. Like, you still hear it. You can't hear a Michael Jackson song without thinking about him. You can't,
It's real hard.
Yeah.
It's real hard because
I was at a wedding and I was like,
oh yeah, this is a great one, isn't it?
I was like, I don't want to dance to this. I'm going to walk off and get a drink now.
Yeah, it's really hard when it comes to. I'm friends with Charlie Clausen and Will Anderson, who have been
The Northern River Boys.
Podcast, yes, they are now.
Yeah.
Good home and away reference there. I like it. They talk about just the eternal heartbreak of being born into a family that supports a club that's just shit.
Yeah.
And that's a very, very Melbourne-ish kind of thing.
I grew up in a team. My team won a premiership for the first time 2 years ago when I was 32. And my team's been very, very bad. Someone said it about the Boston Celtics to me. It's not about when they win. It's about the time you spend with them. Isn't that interesting? It's about the time that you dedicate to them and how you experience that. It's the train ride to the ground. Yeah. It's the time with your dad or your mum or your kids. It's the dedication of time you spend with them, as opposed to the winning or losing. And so in the moments when you are really, really upset with how it's played out, in the long run, it's actually something that's kind of becoming part of you, imbued in you, and that this is the way you choose to spend your time reflects who you are.
I've never heard it described like that. It's like, I know there's a reason I want to go to the Swans and go to the East games with Wolfie.
Yeah.
It's less about the outcome of the game or whose ankle's fucked or whatever. Yeah. And this is why I really like a podcast, because when I watch those shows, all they talk about is a ligament injury. All they talk about is, this coach is not good, or next year someone's getting traded for this. I don't give a shit.
Yes.
I don't give a shit.
Yes.
At all.
What they're really saying, when they're talking about an injury, what they're really saying, if you're talking to a mate about this stuff, what you're really saying is, please connect with me. Please, let's, it's something happens, particularly with men, not just men, but particularly with men. There's comedians I know who I don't really work in the same rooms with, but when I found out they're Melbourne, I'm now deeply connected with, and just something, men particularly, I think, need a reason to connect with someone.
Yeah.
As something as arbitrary as a sports team is enough to...
And that's the real superpower of this city, I think, and why that particularly AFL has influenced our country in such a positive way, is because it gives people a reason to talk who otherwise wouldn't have had a reason to talk, which on a wild way is when people ask me about what do you like about The Bachelor, I like it when people send me pictures of 5 people sitting on a couch built for 3.
Yes.
All right? The ratings hate it because it means there's 4 TVs that aren't on, because 4 people have come over to someone's house to watch it, but it's giving people a reason to be together.
Well, I was going to say, sport's one way to do it. It's a very old way to connect, but shows like The Bachelor, my favorite podcast is a show called The Weekly Planet, which is hosted by a guy called Mr. Sunday Movies.
Yeah.
And that is, I'm like, this is just a sports show, but about movies, really.
Yeah.
And it's like, what do we think the new Spider-Man is going to be like? Or what do we think? Any kind of community, it's becoming more and more common. It's just a nice way to connect with people, really.
Yeah.
Bachelor is a huge example of that.
Oh, man, the new season's really fun.
Is it?
Yeah, it's really fun.
Any passion?
Oh, so much. There's an ex-leaguey who, he's amazing. He's a really incredible guy, which is the thing that I often wonder. I've been in this industry long enough that there's plenty of people that I started with who were as of a high profile that I was as well, who are no longer that, and now walk around the street and people still look at them and go, "You're that person. You're that lady who did that thing."
Yeah.
And they're just, look, yeah, I did that for a while.
Yeah.
And television does it, but sport notoriously does it. Halfway through a season, you've been in the development program since you were 12, you're 22, and that knee's not getting any better, and it's never going to be better. Thanks.
Scary.
And what do you do now? What the fuck do you do now? And they never really ever talk about the well-being of these people, which is kind of why I think the American system, I like the American system in that it has to come through the college. You have to have a degree.
Yeah.
Unless you're, getting drafted straight out of high school because you're that good.
And then you're probably going to be okay.
If you're going to be all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Part of my show, I'm not really that interested in the footy players. I'm more interested in everything else around them. Some of the people I talk to, right, one of my favorite interviews I've done so far is with a boy called Jacob Gaynor. And he's this boy from Canberra. And he is the social media manager for the GWS Giants.
Amazing.
And I just think he's more interesting than a football player. And he's like, here's how I go about finding my memes. And here are when I create memes, they do better when they do this. And I've had this story of doing this. So much more interesting to me. And I found the guy called Roscoe Elliott, right? He wrote the Gold Coast Suns theme song. And he heard they were making a team. They weren't called the Suns yet. And he wrote it and just sent it into the AFL. He's like, hey, and he put like $2,000 into making it sound good.
Wow.
And they wrote back and said, hey, yeah, we'd like you to donate it. He called them the Suns in the song before they were called the Suns. And he said, no, you can't have it for free. And they're like, all right, we're going to do a competition. Went out in this big catch-all competition, and they came back and said, all right, we'll pay you. And so he wrote this song, and they've never wanted anything to do with him since. He's one of the few people alive who have written a song for a football club.
Yeah.
And they're the things I'm kind of in these.
Was there a conversation along there that says like, does it have any banjos?
Yeah.
Can it have more banjos?
I know, he just made
Why are all the banjos in the theme songs?
It's bizarre. And they're all like, if you don't look too deeply into any of these songs, like we were talking about.
Oh, yeah. There's a few that have got some pretty terrible
origins.
origins.
Full minstrel show.
Yeah.
It's full. And like, I think like they're all from that vaudeville era where people thought differently about other people in a very deep way. So yeah, it's all the stuff around this sport. Because
if it came out, if we started writing club theme songs now, it would be fucking drill rap, and it would be awesome.
Yeah,
1-4 would write the Penrith Panthers theme song, and it'd be fucking amazing.
Yeah, exactly right.
And the stadium would heave when it played.
There must have been a period where these songs came out and they became not cool, and then now they've become transcendent. Like, but if you had full trap songs being written they'd be a bit dorky for 5-10 years. But then imagine in 10 years. Imagine a Limp Bizkit if we'd made a club song in 1999 that was, from the Chocolate Starfish album. Now we'd be like, that's the coolest thing ever. A new metal theme song for a club.
But at least keep DJs employed in rock bands.
Yes,
like we need a guy to do some scratching. Why?
DJ
I don't know.
Lethal.
Every band's got one.
DJ Lethal need to keep him in work.
Oh, you speak about terrible people. It's like the Limp Bizkit thing. It's like,
yeah, the 9 Woodstock 99 documentary.
I still can't bring myself to watch it.
Oh yeah. You're probably you were very close to all. Not that you didn't go to Woodstock.
I was very much in the orbit around that big day out, and it was very, very hard for me still. Music, before we even met, music brought us together. What music is in your life now?
What music is in my life now? Yeah. It's everything. I listen to so much music now. Who do I love? My favorite. It's funny, as you get older, you try and push against the gold word at 104 elements of your head, in that you like don't want to just listen to the music that you listened to when you were 20. But who do I love? Kurt Weill. Do you know Kurt Weill? I love. I still listen to Interpol every day. Isn't that funny?
That's okay.
And then who have I been getting into lately?
I have a running theory is like whatever songs were playing when you essentially, either lost your virginity or first had that really big break from your parents into independence.
Oh,
those are these songs that will always mean something to you. And you will say, oh, that was music. No, it wasn't. Like for some people, and I'm really sorry for them, it's Dashboard Confessional. And I'm really, from the bottom of my heart, I mourn, and they're okay with that because they've got teardrops tattooed on their face. I mourn that for them,
At the moment for me, my favorite new album is the Paramore one.
Wow.
Made the This Is Why album. Have you heard that?
No.
I'm going to go see them live. I'm going to be the only 34-year-old man.
No, you won't, mate.
You reckon?
No, you won't.
But This Is Why album is really, really fun and interesting and different. I've been listening to that a lot. My brother is actually really, really good. He's an artist called Artie Ziff, and he does a lot of. I'll just play it into you can cut it, but it sounds like he does this kind of avalanches inspired stuff.
Wow. That's cool.
Yeah. So listen to him.
How do you spell it?
Artie, as in ARTY, ZIFF.
But this is important. I did a radio thing this morning, and I walk into Southern Cross All Stereo, and in the lobby, they must swap it around. But Triple M was playing at the time.
Yeah,
and Van Halen came on. Sammy Hagar Van Halen, which is kind of like the not Bon Scott AC/DC. It's like, it's like
pretty chicken foot though.
It's like an over the pants kind of hand job. It's not actually the
Dreams.
No, it's got what it takes. So tell me why
can't this be love?
Can't this be love? Which was their first US number one. Which is the one. It was the first Sammy Hagar sing. I know too much about this.
Was that Jump didn't go number one?
No, it didn't. But David Lee Roth the original singer of Van Halen, David Lee Roth, he said this fucking brilliant thing on Jay Moore's podcast once, which is a fucking awesome interview. I think it's probably, there's two really good showbiz interviews on the top of my head, and that they are Wayne Brady on Aisha Tyler's podcast.
Wow.
Is probably the greatest showbiz, here's how to do it interview that I've ever heard.
I will listen to that.
It is fucking great.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, and bitch. He said that's how he describes his first 5 years of improv.
Love that.
I'm yes, and bitch. Oh, he's fucking great.
Star.
And the other one is David Lee Roth on Jay Moore's podcast, More Stories. And he talks all about how they went from a cover band to being Van Halen.
Wow.
And David Lee Roth says, whatever time in your life it is, whether it be a CD or whatever it is right now, just pick one song, and for a month, that's the one that plays in your car. It's that one. And then next month, put another one. Next month, put another one. And then as you go through your life, you will, because what is music ultimately, Broden? Music is the humongous big memory wash that shows immediately all our brains associate. Yeah. That's why things are funny, is because we pulled things from way over here and our brain makes the association and it feels like a tickle and we laugh. That's a joke. Music just throws this fucking fire blanket on that and just fires up parts of your brain that otherwise have been dormant. You go, oh, that's right. Oh, fuck. That's why I was in Goldburn. Yeah. And so he reckons like every month just have a different song as you go through your year. It doesn't matter what it is. And then you'll always have this timeline, this fucking incredible time machine at your disposal. And I did it. And he's right.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Do you look back positively on all those songs, or does some you're like, oh no, that was an awful time? Or
sometimes, yeah. Like I had when I got divorced, fucking Gautier's song was number one.
Not Somebody I Used to Know, was it? That's actually perfect though, isn't it?
The worst. It could have been something fun, but it was terrible.
I remember the 2011.
Yeah, it was awful. Exactly right. Yeah. And this is why the musical stuff that you guys do is also great, because it's very well informed. That's the other thing. It's like when I listen to Genesis Owusu, who's a rapper in Australia, Andrew Klippel produces him, who used to be AK Soul and then Madison Avenue.
Right.
Madison Avenue?
Yeah. Don't Call Me Baby.
I don't think it was Madison Avenue. He's just a genius musical. Yeah. Bruno Mars was his backing singer when he was a songwriter in LA, before Bruno Mars was Bruno Mars. So when you listen to Genesis Owusu, it's so informed. And you're listening to the chord structures. You're listening to this like, that's the Husqvarna T525 in that chord.
Yeah.
You know, and similarly, the music that you guys make is like, you know, and it's all a part of it.
Yeah.
Which is great, man.
Oh, that's cool. Thank you for that.
Yeah, it's fucking good. And you got to come and be on our news show, which is there's a spot built it for have a guest reporter.
I'm on. I'm there.
You be a guest reporter.
I'll do it.
And it'll be.
I'm in. Weather. I love that. I would love. Well, it's awful outside today.
Well,
that's typical. I'm ready.
Essentially, it's like, and Broden Kelly with the weather, and I always find what is the actual rural show going on actually somewhere in the world this weekend, and find the actual things that are actually happening, and you talk about details and go, and like Broden, tomorrow there's wife carrying. Which is happening in 2023.
And that's real.
It's a real thing.
I love that.
It really happens, and it's actually going to happen the next day.
That sounds really funny.
It's really fun.
Yeah, man.
It's really fun.
I love that.
I'll show you the thing. I fucking hope some of this recorded.
Yeah, no, if not good yarns.